You don't have that thing. You are not in that place. You are not doing that thing because you have not given yourself permission to. Today, in the I Am the Possible podcast experience, we're going to be talking about permission, about learning how to give ourselves permission to pursue all that God has made possible for us. If that's you, a person in a space, a place, a season where you want to be doing a certain thing, you want to have already attained a certain thing, you wish you would, you wish you could be doing a certain thing, but something keeps coming up. Something keeps preventing you. Something keeps getting in the way. You keep finding ways to fail. You keep finding ways to shrink back. You keep finding ways to sabotage yourself. You keep talking yourself out of it. You keep looking for every reason possible that points to you not being able to do it, have it, be it. If that's where you are, there's something that you really want to be doing, somewhere you really want to be, something you really want to lay hold of, but you're not. Then today's episode is for you. Welcome to the live edition of the I Am the Possible podcast experience. This is the place where possibilities become perspective. I is your host, Treveal C. W. Lynch, Mr. What? And my mission, our mission here in the I Am the Possible universe is to give perspectives on life that give life to what is possible in life. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about permission and you learning how to give yourself permission to pursue the possibilities of your life. Now, some of you may be thinking to yourself, what are you talking about? Permission? Why does permission matter? How does this play into this? What are you talking about permission? Well, I want to share a couple of stories with you that I think is going to kind of shed some light on this. And then I want to give you a few things that you can start to do to correct this behavior in your life. Because it really, really does come down to what's happening right within you and within you that is ultimately producing the results and the outcomes of things that we're experiencing out here. And so I was at lunch the other day. Me and my boy CJ, we were chopping it up, and I forgot how we got on this topic, man. But we started talking about church life, and we started talking about like different ministries and just different things that kind of go on within the church. And we got on the topic just about how sometimes we as brothers can want to do something, right? Whether it's, I don't know, go fishing or hook up, at the coffee shop or whatever it is, right? But we want to do something with other men. And sometimes we will wait for a pastor or a leader to say, hey, let's go out and do this thing, or hey, let's get together and do this thing. And it sparked a deeper conversation, right? Because we were just talking about, pouring into the men and just kind of getting men's ministry going and just kind of, what do we envision for, working with men and just kind of how to, best, reach men. But it sparked a deeper convo. And the conversation was, many times, because we live in such a permission-based culture, a permission-based society, that it starts to infiltrate every area of our lives without us really picking up on it, without us really knowing it, right? I mean, for example, and I'll get right back to the story. Like, for example, right, there's a lot going on right now, and I won't veer off into that topic, but there's a lot going on right now with travel, right? And I think to myself the many times that I've flown from here to wherever, for you to get through from your car to the moment that you're sitting on that airplane, there's all of these checkpoints. And in order for you to proceed, there's permission that has to be granted like 3 or 4 different times. I mean, first you have to pull up to the curb, get all your stuff out, go in. And before you can even get off that first floor, you got to go get your boarding pass. Everything has to line up. You got to check in your bags. Like there's a checkpoint where you have to be granted permission to proceed. And then you go to TSA and they got to check your passport and they got to check your ID and they got to check this and they got to look all through your bags and put you through the scanner and walk you through the metal detector. And that's a form of, hey, we're going to hold guard. We're going to stay at this gate or this door, this opening. And there's something on the other side that you want, but you're not going to proceed until we give you permission. Then you go through all of that, and then you get your bags, you get everything, you go through the airport, you get to wherever, your particular airplane is boarding. And then what happens, right? When they start to call you, you have to wait until they call you. And whatever order you're in, right? If you're in class A, class B, class C, see how they're dictating. And I'm just using this as an example. You can put this in so many different areas in life. I'm just using the airport as just one example, right? But we're sitting and we're waiting for them to call us. And then when they call us, they're like, okay, section A, line up. Okay, section B, line up. Okay, section C, line up. And then even then, you still got to do what? Hand them your boarding pass. They got to check it, scan it. And then finally, you're on the airplane. And you still got to wait for the pilot, for them to check all the wings and the fuel. And they got to load all the stuff underneath the car. Load everything underneath the airplane. And then someone finally gives a thumbs up because they've checked the air. They made sure everything's clear. The other planes are out the way. But see how you, the passenger, has to keep waiting and then waiting and then waiting and then waiting and then waiting. And then you're finally given permission to proceed. This is how we've been trained since birth. Everything is permission-based. Someone with a title, someone with authority, someone with something that we don't have has to give us permission to move forward, to access something, to do something. This isn't all bad. This keeps order. In most cases, this is not a negative thing. It's just the reality of things. It's not a bad thing. It's just what it is. And I'm just calling it out to illustrate, going back to my story when I was sitting there with CJ and we were talking about men's ministry and we were talking about some of the things that some of the men have asked us to do or want to do, have expressed the desire to do, but they don't do it. And what it dawned on, or, what kind of dawned on me and what dawned on CJ was that we have been trained to such a degree about permission on every area or every level of life that even in some of these unconscious, subconscious areas of life that we could be just taking the initiative on, we could be just moving forward. What I was saying to CJ was just like, yo, if brother so-and-so wanted to go fishing with a group of brothers, he could literally just say with his text message, right? He could just grab his phone, send out a text message to a bunch of brothers and be like, yo, we're going to go fishing this Saturday, who down? And there's a fellowship right there. There's a moment of fellowship right there. Now, I won't name any names or anything like that, but I've had brothers come to me and say, hey, when are we going to do X, Y, and Z? Hey, when are we going to X, Y, and Z? And if there's any men from my church and from my ministry that are watching, these things are to come, okay? They are to come. And that's a whole other side topic. But the point that I'm making is any one of us could have already done any of these things. There's no permission that's needed. Because sometimes we think, well, if the pastor don't do it, if the deacon don't do it, if the person with the title don't do it, who am I to do it? See, these are not things that are happening on the surface. These are the subconscious, the levels below. These are things that are happening and creeping and that are coming up in our hearts and in our minds. Again, it's not a big deal. It's not a bad thing. But my point is, I'm using this story to illustrate how you could be not giving yourself permission to do something that you have all the permission in the world to do. Like, no one's holding you back. God's not stopping you. Your pastor and them ain't stopping you. Your mom and them ain't stopping you. Your homeboy and your homegirl ain't stopping you. Ain't nobody stopping you but you. And this is not to point the finger. This is not to make you feel bad. This is not to come at you. This is to reveal. Remember, the greatest form of self-development is self-discovery. Before we level up, we must level down. We must start to understand what is happening within us that is causing some of the things that are going on without us or on the outside of us that we don't like, that we don't want. So if I can get on here and just present to you that maybe it's a permission problem, maybe God's giving you all the permission in the world to pursue all the possibilities that he's given you, that's blessed, that is possible in your life, all these blessings that you could be experiencing, but you've been, like I've been, trained to think that we're waiting for someone to give us permission in order to pursue. And it's just not true. I'm not trying to rhyme, right? But it's just coming out that way, right? And here's the idea that I want to share with you. Like we, sometimes when we preach, it's like, if there's one idea, if you don't hear nothing else, the permission to pursue must come from you. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. The permission to pursue must come from you. Even if God gave you permission and you knew God gave you permission, you still got to give yourself permission. It's a partnership. There's many things God has told you to do and you've not done it. Why? Because you have free moral agency over yourself. You have this thing called autonomy, this gift called choice. And we have to, if we want whatever that thing is that we want, if we want to be wherever that place is that we want to be, if we want to be doing whatever that thing is that we want to be doing, then we must come face to face with the facts that we are permission granters. We are, you are, I am. Just as I am the possible, you are the permission granter. And you can start right now, today, in the most minute, most small, most baby step style way to just start to give yourself permission. This morning, I was on a walk and I don't know, I just kind of woke up kind of feeling a little off for whatever reason, right? I don't know the reason, but whatever the reason was, but I got on my little prayer walk and, I got with the Creator and I was just like, yo, man, I give myself permission to be all right today. Like, I don't know what's going on. And maybe there's some things that I need to address and work on and work through. But I was just like, yo, man, today is recording day. And today I'm going to try out this whole new live thing just to make sure everything's connected and everything's working right. I said, so I've got a commitment that on Tuesdays I release the new episode. Now, maybe there's a day and a time where I can skip a day because things are too rough or too hard, but today ain't one of them days. I was just kind of feeling off. So what did I do? I consciously spoke to myself, and I'm going to be getting into that in just a moment. But I spoke to myself and I said, yo, I give me permission to be all right. Sometimes we got to give ourselves permission to be all right. But that's what I wanted to share with you in terms of kind of how this all came about. It's like, yo, man, we are in such a trained position mentally, cognitively. We are in such a trained position because that's all it is. We've been trained to be where we are mentally. And we can train. That's the good news. If we can train ourselves to get to where we are, we can train ourselves to be somewhere else. And we can train ourselves to be in a position and a place mentally, cognitively, where we are permission givers of that which has been made possible for us. We don't have to continue to give ourselves permission to fail, permission to stop, permission to draw back, permission to shrink back, permission to tomorrow I'll do it, permission to put it off, permission to postpone, permission to do this whole thing where somehow, some way we're just always just falling short. You're giving yourself permission to fall short. I've done this. That's why I can speak to it. For years, I've given myself permission to fall short. For years, I've given myself permission to not do certain things, not say certain things, not go certain places, right? I've done that. I know this to be true, and maybe I'm speaking to you today. And so just like I'm becoming more and more aware and more conscious of this, you can become more and more aware and more conscious of this, okay? So one more story, man. One more story. I won't say any names. I won't even say if it's a man or a woman. I'll just say they, okay? And that's not a pronoun. I'm just saying they, as in I'm not going, because I've always made a commitment, right? If I'm going to share a story and I haven't been given permission, except for CJ. I mean, me and CJ, we do this podcasting thing. We cool like that. He won't mind me sharing our conversation from earlier. But other more sensitive matters is like, if someone didn't give me permission, then I'm not going to share their name. Okay. So I'm going to just say they. All right. But I thought it was appropriate for me to share this story, though, because I think it illustrates the other side of the coin, right? The law of polarity, right? There's always two sides to every coin, right? There's no one-sided piece of bread, right? If you got a slice of bread, I can promise you it's got two sides to it, right? That's the law of polarity summed up. So there's always another way to look at things. All right. And so this person, all right, I know a person who doesn't have a title, who has not been deputized to have any super level of authority kind of whatsoever. But this person will ask anyone to do anything at any time to get what they need done. They have, from the outside looking in, they are fearless. They will ask you to do anything at any time, no matter who you are, to accomplish what they have set out to accomplish, their pursuit of what's possible. They say it with clarity. They say it with certainty, with a boldness that I think we would all want to have, right, in our lives. And so what I wanted to share, I shared that because of what I want to share with you now is this little illustration, and hopefully I can share it on my screen. Hopefully it'll pop up so I can share it. This person has a perspective of themselves, as my cat runs, as one of my cats runs across the screen, the photo bomb. This person has a certain perspective of themselves that gives them permission to give themselves permission to pursue everything that God's made possible for them. I hope and pray that made sense, right? It's like their perspective gives them permission to give themselves permission. And let me just share with you. Hopefully my screen can share. I want to share. Here, let me put my glasses back on. Hopefully I can share this. It'll share because I hadn't created these slides. Let me see if I can do this. Let me share the screen. Let me see if I can bring it up. Okay, if I do a full screen. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen. All right, hopefully you guys can see this. Okay. All right, now let me put it in a full screen. All right, perfect. I think that's perfect. So hopefully what you guys can see on your screen right now is the self concept, which is my favorite topic. And it shows a progression. All right. Perspective, permission, possibilities. And so this is a framework that I've created and committed to. It's my signature framework. Okay. Some of you guys have been with me long enough to where you have heard me talk about the whole relate better, create better. All right. The better we can relate to ourselves, the better we can create for ourselves and those around us. Because life is relationship and relationship is communication. Okay. Life does not happen apart from a relationship, and a relationship does not succeed apart from communication. All right. And so it's important for us to know that the foundation of life is communication. Even in the beginning, let us create man in our likeness. Let us, right? And so we are even a product of communication. Let us create man. So the point is that you need communication in order to have relationship, in order to have relationship to then have the life of a thing. Okay, that's how life is created. And so the self-concept, this goes into this overall framework of the better concept we have of ourselves, right? What we see in ourselves, the better conversations we can have with ourselves, right? What we say to ourselves. All right. And then that leads into the greater and improved capacity. Okay. That which we are able to really manage and maintain within ourselves. Because a lot of times it's just we have a capacity issue. We don't have the capacity for the newness of whatever it is that we want to do. We don't have the capacity. It's like a garage, right? I don't know if you have one of those garages where you just fill it up with stuff and then you just keep adding more stuff and keep adding more stuff and keep adding more stuff. And before long, it's like if someone says, hey, can you go out into the garage and grab that picture of the family, 20 years ago, and you're like digging through this mountain of mess because so much stuff has piled up in that garage. Well, that's kind of how capacity works. It's like you just keep adding more things in there and it gets more junkier and cluttered. It's just all of this clutter. And then it's very difficult to quickly assess quickly access the things that we need and that we want. And so that's kind of sort of my illustration for kind of how it works within our hearts and within our minds, right? We don't have the capacity. We haven't expanded internally to where we can hold and we can properly manage and maintain all of the new things that we are adding to our plates. And so that's what leads to overwhelm and burnout and quiet quitting and all this other stuff that we get into. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But to stay on point, or at least to try to, right? I just share so much information. But this self-concept, again, concept of self, right? Then we move into conversations with self, and then we move into capacity within self. Okay. And so this right here, this perspective, I was sharing a story about this person having a perspective of themselves. Well, the perspective that they have of themselves leads to or gives way to the permission that is necessary for them to pursue all of the possibilities that are within their lives. So this is at a super high level, right? This is the stuff I coach, I train and teach, but this is a very, very high level kind of explanation, right? Make it simple, right? Make it very simple. So the way you see yourself, the self-concept is made up of your self-belief, your self-image, your value, your worth, just all of the things concerning the way that you look at yourself, your perspective of self, the position that you hold currently of yourself, the evaluation you have of yourself, the value that you hold of yourself, the way that you look at yourself. That is what is controlling whether or not you are giving yourself permission to pursue all that God has made possible. Does that make sense? This person that I'm talking about, that person has a perspective of themselves that says, hey, I got permission to ask these people to do this. I got permission to, institute this. I've got permission to be about this. I've got permission to go about this. They're giving themselves a green light over and over and over. The permission, the green light, the access, the permission to pursue, the permission to move forward, the permission to come in, the permission to go to all of that permission is because of the way they see themselves. They have a perspective of themselves, of God, of others. But ultimately, it's the perspective that they have of themselves above anything else. They see themselves in a certain way that leads to or lends to or gives fuel to permission to move forward and to do whatever it is that they need to do to accomplish whatever it is that they've set out to accomplish. Why does this matter to you and I? Well, because again, as I started, if you're the person that is finding ways to shrink back, finding ways to fail, and that's a whole other topic, but I don't really believe in failure, that there is no such thing as failure. And I'll explain that in a whole different episode. But yeah, man, you're the person that would want to be doing something else, would like to have something else. You would like to be somewhere else, but you're not. And a lot of it has to do with the concept that you have of yourself. A lot of it has to do with the way that you look at yourself. When you set out for that dream, that goal, that ambition, whatever it is, something within you is saying, no, that doesn't align with who I really believe I am. No, that doesn't really align with the kind of person that I believe myself to be. Because for you to maintain and manage, for example, $1 million, you have to kind of, to some degree, even if it's just some, trying to figure out the word for it. There's a word that I'm trying to use, but like, even if you're like, just thinking extremely audacious, concerning yourself, or you just have this overestimation of yourself, that's fine. The mind says, okay, that works. There's a different word that I'm trying to use, not quite coming to mind for me right now, but like, we have this inflated idea of ourselves. Well, that works because that inflated idea of yourself gives you permission to pursue the $1 million. It's not about right or wrong. It's not about good or evil. It's not about godly or ungodly. No. This is just how the mind works. This is just how the brain works. So if you are a righteous person and you think poorly of yourself, then you're going to give yourself a lot less permission to pursue better things. If you are an unrighteous person and you think very well of yourself, then you're going to give yourself a whole lot more permission to pursue a whole lot more possibilities. Doesn't matter about your faith. Doesn't matter if you're a Christian. Doesn't matter if you go to church. Doesn't matter if you're none of those. This is not a separator. Those things help. They can help. But I've also seen ways that they can hurt. And I won't get into that today. But the bottom line is, the perspective you have of yourself will dictate the permission that you give to yourself, which will dictate the pursuit of the possibilities in your life. And that's why I specialize in giving perspectives on life that give life. When I say give life, I'm talking about like almost like the inspiration that we find in Genesis, right? Where God formed man. And man was just a lump of clay until God released that breath of life, that inspiration, that blowing into, the inflating, the making aliveness, right? Some of us are deflated and we don't feel alive. That's why one of my favorite quotes, if not my favorite quote in the world, Mystic Howard Thurman, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And so I just hope and pray that through the work that I'm doing here with iAMthepossible and with the emphasis on perspectives, the emphasis on the self-concept, that I'm helping somebody receive a breath of life, of what's possible in their lives. So I just hope and pray that this has met you where you are. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Let's see. How do I stop sharing? I jumped on here and just said, okay, I'm going to share. Then how do I stop sharing? Okay, there we go. That's how I stop sharing. All right, getting used to this technology. Told you this is my first time going live with this new platform, so testing everything out. But let me go ahead and wrap it up, man. I already broke down my signature framework, calling it my C3P, right? Concept, conversations, capacity equals possibilities, baby. So I already broke that down. So because this is live, I've not drafted up a description or put any links down below. But as soon as I wrap it up, as soon as I'm done, I will go back and on the various platforms that I've gone live on, I will go ahead and put the description down below, put the links in there that you can start to learn and craft a concept for yourself. The links that I'm going to provide are going to be free resources that I have developed over the last 20 or so years, and I continue to develop more. I'm going to be creating a community soon here where I can just coach live and do a lot of interacting and do some Q&A and just really work with folks. But right now I've got some free resources that you can tap into, quick downloads, and you can begin to ask yourself certain questions, begin to assess yourself, because a lot of us, we've just never assessed ourselves. We don't appreciate ourselves because we've never assessed ourselves. That was the first thing that I did 25 years ago. That was one of the first things I ever did. That's what got me going. That's what got me to this point, was a self-assessment. The very first thing I ever did was a spiritual gifts test, a spiritual gifts assessment. And that opened up the floodgates. And I've never been the same since. So that was in 2001. So it's been 25 years of self-development and self-discovery for me, man. But it all started with an assessment. And once I began to see what I was and I began to understand what I was and what I had and how things work within me, man, I've made so much progress in my life. My life is not perfect. I'm not Mr. Know-it-all, have it all, do it all, but I am Mr. Find a way to get back on it. I am Mr. Resilience. I am Mr. Find a way to overcome the obstacles. Yes, absolutely, in and through the grace of God. All credit, and glory be to God and the grace and the mercy of God. But like I said earlier, there's a partnership. God can bless you with grace, mercy, wisdom, insight, understanding, the whole nine, and you still not do nothing with it. It's a partnership. And I believe that my part in this partnership is to educate and help to elevate your estimation of yourself, understanding what's going on within you. All right. So yeah, man, the better we can relate, the better we can create for ourselves and most importantly, those around us. So after I'm done, drop the description, drop the links, click those links, get those downloads, and begin to craft a better concept of yourself so you can have a better conversation with yourself, so you can develop a greater capacity within yourself, and you can pursue all that is possible within you. All right. Love y'all, praying for y'all, believing in y'all. Until next time, this is Treveal C.W. Lynch, Mr. What? And this has been another episode of the I Am the Possible podcast experience. Oh, yes, the place where possibilities become perspective. Until next time, please continue to be the proof that it's possible in your life, because you got some people watching.